Hello there, and welcome back to the Proclamation Podcast. I am here with Wesley, and I don't think you all have seen either of us on camera before, but we are the two people that make all the behind the scenes of the Proclamation Podcast happen. And given that we were looking back at the podcast archive, looking back to the episodes that we have ready to go, and we noticed that there was 3 weeks left in the year, and we only had 2 podcast episodes left. Whoops. So you guys are going to get a behind the scenes episode here with Wesley and I. So we just sort of talk about life as being creatives, kind of how we got involved here, and a little bit of everything else in between.
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds like a plan. Let's get into it.
All right. Everybody take a sip of your coffee while we transition.
So as far as how I...
This is going to be a struggle, bro.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. So I started coming to Fourscore because I moved up here back in April in the middle of the deep quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing was open, but I was, oddly enough, driving around late one night with a girl I'd met on Tinder. Oh, no. No, trust me, we figured out very quickly that we'd make much better friends than lovers. But anyway...
It's good to find out quickly.
Good to find out quickly. Yeah, we didn't find that out like 6 months into the relationship or anything. And we were driving around that night, and I noticed that you guys had like some seating and stuff out front. I was like, oh, well, outdoor seating, that makes sense. It's like we're in Roseville in like the spring, early summer. It's gorgeous outside. So I started coming up here before work every day because at the time I was working in a fast food back in a kitchen. And I really fell in love with the atmosphere and the community.
Mm-hmm.
And like every time I'd show up, I'd have a conversation with someone I hadn't known beforehand. Like my favorite example is there was one time I came up with the intention to I think I was reading The Great Gatsby or something at the time. And I'd come up with the intention of sitting down and having some quiet time reading my book before I went into work. And I ended up in this in-depth conversation about Tesla, SpaceX, and Rocket Lab with a patent lawyer for Rocket Lab and a guy who I'm pretty sure was a professor of aerospace at Berkeley. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But it was a very fascinating conversation. And it's just that kind of stuff that I would show up and I'd be hit with something that I would love but didn't expect in the slightest. It really drew me in. And then about 2 months into my fast food job, I realized, okay, this is soul crushing. I spend my most creative hours putting chicken into a fryer and pulling it back out.
It's a beautiful piece of artwork.
Art is subjective, and I found none of it. It was good Dada. That's what it was. But and so I started applying around to literally every business in the area that was hiring, and I ended up dropping my resume here at Fourscore a couple of times, and then on the advice of an Uber driver, I wrote Luke a very impassioned letter on my official letterhead because I am a Viscount of the Kingdom of Ladonia, and so which is a small kingdom up in the Nordic, like Scandinavian area.
Okay.
South coast of Sweden by Denmark. And so I wrote that on my official fancy letterhead, and I wrote a letter in, and then I think a week and a half later, I got a call from Luke saying, hey, I'll bring you in for an interview. And, the rest is history. I got involved here, started working on the podcast, got a couple other projects in the pipeline that I'm working on too. I'm really excited for. But, how about you? How did you get introduced to Fourscore?
Yeah, I remember that one time though when you first, I think it was on either your first or second day, you came in when we were recording a podcast, and you brought your camera.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that I had forgotten my camera battery on that day, and you saved me because my camera died like halfway through the podcast, and we were able to use yours. So like, nice timing on that.
Yeah, that was the episode with Gil and Isaac.
Yeah, I think so. But that was funny. Good timing on that one. But let's see. So I've been on a journey of building up kind of my freelance production company for a while.
Yeah.
A little over a year now. It's been my full gig and everything like that. So, during that time, I would just come to Fourscore to work, to edit photos, to edit video, to waste time, to drink coffee. I'd come in here like every single day. And through that process, I just got to get to know everybody and started meeting people. I've gotten a couple of different jobs from different people, just sitting around, hanging out at a coffee shop. And then lo and behold, one day Luke comes by and he's like, bro, I got a project for you. Let's have a meeting. And so we have a meeting and everything, and we work on this big project together. And it's great. And I love Foursquare. And one thing leads to the next. And then after kind of quarantine hits and everything, we kind of just had a conversation about like what it looks like to expand online and stuff like that. Like that's kind of the next best move. To create security and stuff like that. And so we talked about starting a podcast, talked about starting a YouTube channel and stuff like that. And one thing led to the next, and here we are. I have to be on a podcast. I don't like that.
Believe it or not, for those of you listening to the podcast, there are 2 videos up on the Foursquare YouTube channel back from the first time we did pumpkin spice lattes.
That's funny.
2015 or something.
Yeah.
That is entirely what exists on the Foursquare channel.
I didn't even know that right now, but yeah.
But keep your eyes tuned, because
there
will be some more stuff coming up.
But yeah, that's kind of how I got my start of just hanging out, getting to know people. And honestly, I find that like a great way just to kind of expand your network and get to know people. Something that I think is so beautiful about coffee shops in general is just you get a huge variety of people. There's no class of people that go there. It's just everybody and anyone. Like you were saying, like you were talking to people that were working up huge in like SpaceX and stuff like that. And like, that's crazy. You just randomly stumble upon people at a coffee shop like that. So I think it's such a cool space. That's honestly how I've gotten a lot of my jobs, is just hanging out and getting to know people. So
because most of my friends I know in media up in the area are from this coffee shop, because you notice that almost any photographer who comes here, or videographer, they sit down and they put their camera out. And that's just your gateway.
Marketing 101 at coffee shops. Just set your camera on the table, maybe set your business card right next to it, and you're set.
And the fun part is then when I'm sitting with people I know here in media, you'll see our table and it's got like 4 or 5 different cameras out and like 4 people on laptops with hard drives. And it's like, it's very, very obvious what all of us are employed in.
Yeah, it's funny, but it's a good time.
And so when did your journey then in like working in media begin for you?
Let's see. So, I mean, I've been doing it full time as kind of like my only source of income, not working another job or anything since last December.
Okay.
So I actually just hit a full year, which is pretty cool. A couple weeks ago. Thank you. Barely surviving. It's been a fun journey. But I've been passionate about it for probably going on 5 years now. I started out with a little Canon XS, I think it was called.
Okay.
It's super, super tiny. Super old camera, had like 10 megapixels on it. But my dad bought it he owns a sign company, and he bought it to take product photos to put up on his website. He used it for about 2 months or so, and then set it on a shelf, and that's where it sat. And then I came along and he's like, that's cool. And I was kind of like getting into photography already, just shooting stuff on my iPhone and stuff like that. I just found it interesting, and it was a cool way to like help me create memories, because I wasn't like super good at like capturing images inside my head. But then when I took photos and I could see that image, it helped me like remember different stuff. So I thought it was like a really cool thing to be able to do, kind of capture the moment, stuff like that. So I picked up that camera, didn't shoot video or anything, but I was getting interested in video at the time. So I just shot with that and just started taking it everywhere. I probably a year into it, I picked up the Nifty 50, a little 50 millimeter.
Nice.
The Canon 1.8 50 millimeter. Everybody's got to have that. It's like your second lens always. And then so I just shot on that, and then like being able to go from a wider aperture down to a low aperture 1.8, and you get that blurry background. You're like, I'm a professional now. And so that like set me off of just taking photos everywhere. And some of my friends had a camera, and I was really good at getting my friends into the hobbies that I was into. So I got my friends into videography and photography after a while. And they got cameras that could shoot video. And so we'd go out and shoot little skits and we used to ride scooters at the time. So like, you know, we don't need to get into that. But that's in the past. But we just shot everything, and we were just filming stuff and go over and do little skits and short films and stuff, and they're horrible.
Yeah.
And you can't find them online anywhere.
No.
But yeah, one thing led to the next, and then I started getting more passionate about like filmmaking and media and stuff like that, and started to watch all these people on YouTube, and I'm like, I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't tell myself I can't do that. And so like I just decided like I'm going to work towards that. I'm going to build up a media presence. I'm going to build up a personal brand. I'm going to help as a means of a business, I'm going to help other businesses do that with media and stuff like that. And 2 years ago, I got my first camera, the Sony A7 III. That's the one. There's a lot of numbers and letters in there. And that was my first like professional video that could or professional camera that could shoot video.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just been scaling and learning and building ever since that.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of how I got my start. Over to you.
Oh yeah. So my journey in media takes us all the way back to when I was a little 5th grader being homeschooled, and we were doing it.
I was homeschooled too.
Seriously, let's go. When were you from like all the way through?
Basically, yeah.
Okay,
I did private school for like a little bit.
Yeah.
But then like homeschool, kind of like weird charter school thing, all the way through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, homeschooled 2nd through 8th grade.
Nice.
But then, and the curriculum we were doing that year, part of what they had us doing was starting a blog on WordPress.
Okay.
So that's when I started. And it was
quite an assignment.
Yeah. It was called The Daily Squawk because we owned chickens at the time.
Oh, no.
And so if you can think of like a cringy, grunge, like middle schooler blog, impact font and everything, like that's what this was. And my initial intro into media and shooting photos and videos was actually through that because for all 8 people following the vlog, I did a weekly 30-second vlog because that was the longest you could email through Gmail.
Okay.
And so I would shoot that on my little iPod Touch 4.
Oh my gosh.
On the front-facing camera.
Was it like 2 pixels just changing colors or something?
Pretty much. It was not high quality work.
That's funny.
And so that's when I got my start. And after that, the blog died out pretty quickly. As you can imagine, once the assignment was done, I was like, this is a lot of work. I'd rather just go play with Legos or something.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just let that sit dormant. But then I started getting back into it my freshman year of high school. And then my sophomore year, I actually started doing some video editing work for a small little art YouTube channel. And that turned into another thing where I got picked up but then by the art channels, like the parent brand. I got picked up by that. And that turned into a residency at a studio down in San Diego called Beta House, which it's now closed down, sadly.
Oh.
But and so working there, and that just led to all kinds of crazy opportunities. I've shot events where, oh look, the governor's here, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And
that's funny.
I was working with that studio down in SoCal, and I was just hardcore networking every chance I got. Pat Flynn used to do a meetup.
I'm reading his book right now.
Which one?
Superfans.
Oh, it's such a good one. But he did a once a month meetup at a WeWork down there.
Okay.
And so like going to that, and it was just getting to talk with and network with all these incredible people, which led to all kinds of opportunities. Ended up getting connected with one of my closest friends in media, Elliot Walker. He worked with Gary Vee for a little bit, blew up on TikTok over 2 videos where he crashed a wedding.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
yeah, he went to a friend of his weddings and shot it like he was crashing the wedding.
Oh.
And he got, I think, between the two, somewhere in the neighborhood of, I want to say like 16 to 20 million views on that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Was this like right when like TikTok was like
pretty
new and everything?
Yeah, he was pretty new. He's I think I want to say he's somewhere near 600K followers on there now. Like he's a decent presence. And so started picking up some jobs through him. Ended up, there was one job in particular. It's really memorable. And one day he calls me up. He's like, hey, I've got this editing job that I don't have time for right now. I'll give you like this much to do it. And I'm like, sure, yeah, I'll grab that. And he's like, yeah, shot at some event in New York that a friend of mine did and needed to pass the editing off. And so I was like the 3rd person down the chain on that. Like, so I was getting in there. And as I'm editing the video, it's like, it looks like this swanky party, like Soho or somewhere. And then I realized that as I get to 2 things as I'm working on the video. The first is that this videographer has made some very interesting choices in varying the frame rate in the middle of the main speech, which means I have
How does that work?
I
Explain that.
don't exactly know, because at one point it was 4K at 60 FPS, or the 59. Then it dropped down to the 24, then up to 29, then back up to the 59, all during the speech, which means I had to go through and manually sync the audio for this thing. Nightmare to do.
Oof.
But part of what I figured out,
it's not that frame, but it's not 2 frames over, but it's still not that third frame.
I got to cut out this tiny little pause right here to make it all fit. And so it took like, oh my gosh, that was a nightmare process. I probably ended up putting in a lot more time than I originally agreed to on this project. And that's because...
I mean, isn't that all editing projects? Let's be real.
Oh, yeah.
It'll take 2 hours. It takes 8.
But yeah, as I was working on this project and editing the speech, I come to notice something. This project, this isn't for the people hosting the party. No, the video I'm editing is for the tourism department of the Netherlands.
What?
Yeah, that's what I come to notice. I'm like, I call up Elliot and I'm like, hey man, who's the client on this? And he's like, something to do with like the Netherlands or something. And I'm like, okay, so here's what's going to be happening. I'm going to be logging stupid off the books hours to make sure this looks incredible. It's a great finished product. And oh my gosh, but it was just one of those moments where, I'm hitting in the big leagues and I'm used to T-ball. Like,
yeah, that's funny.
And so,
well, hey, I mean, you must have had the skills to like, it got delegated to you. So
yeah, I mean, I ended up being in the right place in the right time for that.
There you go.
But I got so many incredible opportunities and projects through that. And most of the hardware I have access to is because I worked for that studio. And, but that studio ended up closing down in February because the owner, she had been having some health issues at the time, and she wasn't able to put the time in that a startup needed, because this was a fresh startup. I was their first hire for it.
Okay.
But yeah, some super cool stuff through there. And then I ended up moving up here with my family during COVID, because I didn't have a client base in San Diego at the time to be able to support myself on San Diego rent. Not cheap. Not cheap at all.
No. And
so moved up here, was just kind of Twitch streaming for a while, because that's something I'd started back in last December. And so I was doing that, and I was like, you know what? A job would be a nice thing to have up here, because I kind of missed this little thing called having money.
Yeah.
And so got hired into fast food, and like I was saying earlier, quickly realized that was soul crushing work, and just started pushing everywhere I could to try and get a job back in media. And that ended up back at the beginning of November turning into a position here for me. Though I ended up having to take a little bit of a leap on that, and that my Twitch is starting to get a little bit bigger. It's nowhere near like paycheck size, but I'm on the path to that.
The slow journey.
Yeah, the slow
small
grind,
beginnings.
The little growth, just the constant small growth that one day is going to be something big.
Right.
But I'm in that in between period right now. And it was at a point where I had to, I ended up quitting my job at the fast food place, because I knew that if I wanted to get into media, I needed to put more time into it. And that at the time I was working 20, 22-hour days between everything. And that's long term. That's not sustainable.
That's no fun.
And that's a very quick path to lead to burnout for me. It's just I ended up actually taking the month of November as a hiatus for my Twitch and most of my content creation, to just try and recenter after that time. And I know you recently published a video on your YouTube talking about burnout.
Yeah.
And so what's it like? Because I'm coming on the tail end. I'm back in the swing of creation. So I'm coming out of burnout. But what's it like to be in that phase? Because I know a lot of creators they talk about going into it and they talk about coming out of it, but there's not much discussion about what it's like to be actively in burnout.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, for me, like trying to learn how to navigate, since I quit I worked at a coffee shop. I love coffee too much. But so I quit my coffee job after that, because I felt like if I work hard enough, I can support myself working the same amount of hours, but for myself.
Yeah.
Rather than getting a paycheck at a coffee shop and having my time set for me and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'll just send it for this year and see how it goes and everything like that. And it's been great. But there's this weird responsibility and stress that comes with running or trying to start your own business.
Yeah.
That is like, it's all on you. And if you don't do things, stuff doesn't happen. And that just does, you don't have that when you have a job of like, if you can totally be in a bad mindset, still show up to work and work your 8 hours or whatever, and still get paid. But if you show up to your own business with a bad mindset and you're all unproductive and stuff that work day, you don't necessarily get paid because you might not do the right work or something like that. And there's just this different type of stress that happens when you're trying to make it on your own.
Oh yeah, especially those early days of being in a startup too, knowing that every job matters, and especially when you're trying to build your cred and reputation, you have to, everything has to be your absolute best, because that's what you need to be able to like pull in more clients and be able to like support yourself.
Yeah. And so kind of this year, it's been a little bit rough towards this end of the year. And so like there's just like that stress of like it's not working out, and like getting worried of like where's income going to come in, like how do I market myself, and how do I create business for myself. And so with that, on top of like trying to start a personal brand, of trying to be consistent on YouTube and stuff like that, and being consistent on Instagram and stuff like that, it's just a lot. So you hit like this kind of just like stressed out spot where you're like not really wanting to create. And I just got like kind of uninspired, and like I go through like repetitions of like feeling proud of my work and then feeling really not proud of my work. And like you're just like kind of getting a season of like, what is this all for? I'm not as good as these other people, you know, comparing and stuff like that. And it just it does weigh on you for a while. But I've gone, since I've been doing this for I'd say like really focusing on it for like the last 2 years in terms of video, I've noticed that I've gone just through ups and downs of this. So like I've learned to just recognize that like when I'm feeling burnt out and stuff like that, of just trying to kind of rely on like the discipline of work and just like continue making small progress, and realize that it is a long-term game. And if I can just, you know, if I have to cut down not posting a video a week on YouTube and doing like 2 weeks, or like just take a week of a break, it's really not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. And I try to just focus on like regaining kind of my mental state and like refocusing on top of just like keeping the vision for where I want to be. And then as I work through that, it'll kind of just like work itself out. Then I can go through and start working hard again on that. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense or not, but for me personally, kind of just like what I'm focusing on when I'm feeling burnt out is like not to like try to focus on not stressing out and thinking like, oh, I have so many things to do, but just focus on like one thing, get that done, and then move on to the next, and just trying to keep it much smaller scale of like, maybe when I'm in a good spot, I think about like, oh, I'm going to do this 10 years down the road. I'm going to do this 5 years down the road. And I have this huge vision. But when you're feeling burnt out and you're feeling overwhelmed, that big of a vision feels really, really scary. And it's like crushing on you. So I try to focus on like, just bring it back. And I'm just like, for this week, just get one video out, reach out to 3 different clients or something like that. So just try to like bring the scale of what you're working on way down, and just try to like close in on that focus. And that helps me stay a little bit more consistent. Like I don't have to be overwhelmed with like what I want to do over the next 5 years or 10 years or even just a year, and just focus on like, what do I got to finish this week?
Just taking some time to stop looking at the mountain and look at the path in front of you.
And that kind of helps me stay consistent. For the most part. But I don't know. I'm still learning.
And I mean, we all are. It's one of the things of working in media is you never get to stop learning. I think my list of books right now is like 9 or 10 deep.
Oh boy.
I'm working on I think it's Videocracy by one of the YouTube's old heads of trends and marketing right now is what I'm working through. And it's talking about sort of the back end nature of YouTube. And it's one of those books that if you're not in the industry, it is going to be super dry for you. But there's a lot of little humor in there too.
Yeah.
And this book has some of my favorite footnotes I've ever seen, because you can see this guy, he's writing an actual book that like he feels needs to be written, talking about serious stuff, but then he just keeps making these great jokes in the footnotes.
I love that.
I love it.
That's great.
Like one of the things I found really interesting about that book is YouTube employees have some of the worst algorithm suggestions out of anyone.
Really?
Yeah, because they're constantly having to look at such different stuff because of their jobs, that they don't have a set style that they're looking for. They don't have set content that they're looking for. And so they could be one moment having to go back and check something on a 10-hour loop of Gangnam Style, and then come around in their next video is like a Peter McKinnon video.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have such that variety there that the algorithm just can't dial it in for them, which is pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. That is funny. We'll go a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean by like when they like suggest how to use the algorithm, or like,
So referring to what the YouTube algorithm suggested to the employees is just super inconsistent. But then going a little bit, let's talk about the algorithm for a little bit.
The grand algorithm.
This all-powerful, mystical program that determines just how popular.
That hates us all.
Yes, that hates us all and loves advertising money. And it's dealing with the algorithm is such a weird, incredible, stupid thing. Because looking at it from the outside, it's gotten to such an advanced point that it's almost undistinguishable from actual intelligence, which is crazy to think about. But then you look at the weird little rules on YouTube that you have to follow, that for the first 30 seconds of a video, you don't want to have any profanity, any sexual references, because that'll make you non-advertiser friendly. But within the first minute of the video, you want to have something that's not necessarily all the way out there, but a little harsher to make sure that you're not violating COPPA. And so you have to have this weird balance where you need to be advertiser friendly, but not fully family friendly. And this weird point, and there's so many lines, it feels like a tightrope walk, but the tightrope isn't straight. It's doing these wild zigzags and curves left to right, and you're trying to stay on it as it's swinging in the wind. And there's just so many interesting things about it. And yet the way that originally this was just a way of, hey, you watched this video. We want to keep you on the site, to keep your attention here, we want to suggest you something similar that we think you'll like. And it started as that, and it's grown into something so huge. And a lot of it too has become an interesting case study into the nature of humanity, referring now to Instagram's algorithm, that it as an algorithm doesn't have any bias towards video content. But the reason that you will see so much video content is because of human nature, that we are naturally, the way our brains are built and programmed, we are naturally drawn to movement, to sound, to color. And so we're going to engage more with a video than we are still image.
Right.
And so it's these interesting biases that were never programmed into the algorithm, but we from our side have programmed into it. There's so many interesting things you can discover about yourself and about others by looking how we interact with this system.
Yeah. I remember researching on some of the new YouTube analytics. Something that I thought was like really interesting is like going back to like how the algorithm can suggest like the next best video for you, or you might also like this, or like you know how like if you go on the YouTube app, like you have your own customized page that has your individual videos on it that show what you're interested in, stuff like that, and that's all built off the algorithm and what you're watching and stuff like that. But something I thought was interesting that is a relatively new analytic for YouTube for bigger creatives. They're not releasing it to everybody, but is the ability to see what your subscribers are also watching.
Interesting.
And it allows you to create curated content for for your audience base, right? And I just thought that was like an interesting thing of like how like so much of relatively open information, it's not like creepy, like, you know what I'm watching. You're literally on YouTube watching videos. It's not like privacy issues. I don't feel personally. But it's kind of cool to be able to like see like they can give you like a little snippet about like what your audience is interested in, and it helps you create content for them. And it's just an interesting like back and forth where like YouTube can also show you what you might be interested in, but it also shows the creators you're watching what you're interested in, so they can help create more stuff for you. And it's just a back and forth that's kind of cool.
And so I want to hit a little bit more on that point about creators creating content to feed the algorithm. As a creator, what pressure do you feel to not necessarily make content that you would be the most passionate about, but you know that'll perform well?
Yeah, for me personally, right now, since I'm like a newbie,
Yeah.
little new YouTuber, I try not to focus on all of that stuff and just focus on like being consistent for myself. And like I think as a new YouTuber and being really interested in like the filmmaking world, I get really into the analytical side of it and
Yeah.
figuring out, what does work and how to curate to the algorithm and get people to watch my videos. But then at the same time, I have to take a step back and just focus on like what do I like creating?
Yeah.
Because there's that balance between if you're just always pushing out content that's best for the algorithm, it's going to burn you out if you're not doing stuff you're enjoying. And that's kind of been like something I've been learning recently is like when you're first starting out, it's good to create content that you enjoy creating because it's going to keep you creating longer and you're not going to hit burnout because you're enjoying what you're doing more. So what I've been focusing on lately is trying to kind of balance a little bit between finding my own style of video, how I like to create, how I like to tell a story. But then on top of that, focusing on trying to get the algorithm to pick up my video, focusing on like, doing searchable titles or doing tech reviews or something that's in my niche of filmmaking. Focusing on the popular thumbnails or doing that kind of clickbait or popular title of a video. I like to put those in there every once in a while too. That will help, rank my video on search or something like that. I had my most watched video is it's how to film epic product B-roll. And like if you know the filmmaking industry on YouTube, that is like such a popular YouTube title. Like it was probably like a year ago, but everybody was like putting that out, and like all the filmmakers that I watched put out how to film epic B-roll or epic product B-roll or something like that. And I thought it was hilarious that the one video that I put out that had that same title, it didn't do well for like the first month, and then it like hit. I don't know if it like hit on the first page of search or something, but it just blew up, and it has more views than like 90% of my videos. And I thought that was hilarious.
Well, and there's the art channel I worked for. There's a video that they put out a couple years back now that didn't do well for the first couple months, and then just got this massive upswing in views from India. And so we're like, okay, interesting. And so 12 months go by, and that same pattern, massive upswing from India. And so we go back and we're looking at the video, and we realize it's how to do freehand geometric designs. And so we do a little bit more research on it, and we realize that that's part of the Indian art curriculum for their public schools. And so this weird trend of, from the outside, it makes no sense why this video in this really specific region is getting a massive amount of popularity for just a really like couple week period, then drops back down, and it's just a cyclical cycle, which is really interesting to look at for stuff like that.
It's funny how that happens. And like what I've heard too from like just hearing other people's story on like viral videos and stuff like that is like you can try to focus on creating a viral video, but it really kind of just happens over time. And like I've heard people of like they've put so much work into trying to make this the perfect video, and it falls flat, and then they just make this really weird, just no work went in, or not much work went into it, and it skyrockets. Like it's like there's still the mysteriousness of the algorithm that's like there.
And you
that
can never
nobody can really figure it out.
And it's just so. And I mean, there's a couple things here and there that I've specifically tried to get to take off, and not much, because, well, frankly, I'm still relatively new as a published content creator. I've been doing live streaming and live music performance for a while, but I'm just now getting to the point where I'm like trying to consistently upload like long-term content that's not just in the moment. And
evergreen content.
Yes. And it's such a weird process to think, okay, I'm used to just being live and letting the flow and my interaction with those around me be what governs what I do for content. And now having to take it and give it a very specific direction. And it's something to be very interesting. And earlier, I think about a week and a half ago, I released my first ever scripted comedy video.
Oh.
And that was probably that was easily the most difficult thing I've ever worked on. Because it's not like, because I'd done like an internet news show briefly, back with the studio and then later on my own. And like I've got a brand that I own and I've done content for that. And that's all easy because it was strictly formatted. Like I was covering the news from the week, what you needed to know, why TikTok was getting sued, all this stuff. But then I had to come out here and be like, okay, I'm the only thing giving this project direction. It's going to be as good as I'm willing to put time and effort into this. And it was just so out there because it's like, well, I can't just refer to this other article and take bits and pieces of it. And it's got to be this thing that's wholly original and coming from me. And I have to figure out the timing. I have to figure out the jokes. I have to figure out the shot styles because there's nothing else I can refer to for this. And so it's coming to that point of where you're making videos for more than just a format or a style, but when you're actually like starting to pour some heart and soul into them, it becomes an entirely other thing from the creative and production aspect of it.
Yeah. And it's scary too. Like when you start pushing or putting your value I guess your values and like your heart into it.
Yeah.
It not only becomes hard creatively, but also becomes really vulnerable.
Yeah.
And like nerve-wracking to put out of like, I'm putting my personality out there for people to judge and they can do whatever they want. And it is a little scary, but it's a lot of fun. You get like a big rush when you hit that publish button.
Oh yeah. The rush of hitting that, you finish typing the descriptions, you get your tags and everything picked out and you just hit that and it's like, ooh, you get the chills.
Yeah. You get all excited and then you do it all over again. It's a fun process.
The rush of the publish, man.
It's funny. Hey, have you heard? I'm gonna check the time real quick. Hold it.
Yeah, we're 40 minutes in.
Okay. Have you heard? This is just a shot in the dark. I just saw it on Instagram a couple days ago. Have you heard anything about the new social media platform called Clubhouse?
Oh, I haven't. I've seen a lot of stuff that a lot of the Facebook boomer group is going over this new app called Parler.
Okay.
But I haven't heard anything about Clubhouse. What's that?
I could be totally getting the name wrong. I didn't look into it at all, but I think it's called Clubhouse. It's a new. My understanding is it's like a new live streaming platform, but it's audio only, so it's like chat rooms almost.
Yeah.
With live audio, and I thought that was really interesting. Since you were talking about like you're used to doing live streams and stuff like that, if you've heard about it or not.
So kind of like live podcasting.
I guess.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's a interesting concept, but personally, I don't think it'll really last.
No.
Because they're talking about like doing live stuff, but also evergreen stuff. Like, I don't think as of right now you can like document anything, so it's always live.
Yeah.
So like you can't really scale that.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting concept of like having, because like how Zoom's huge and like everybody has like these chat rooms. But then just doing it with audio, I thought that was like an interesting concept. It's always kind of fun to see like these like little social media platforms trying to start up and like see if they go well or if they don't. TikTok or not TikTok.
I mean, there was Vero a couple years back, and there's just
I never heard of that.
Yeah, there's as many social media startups as there are people wanting to be on social media and be popular. And I mean, especially that's been something. Oh my gosh, I just completely lost my point and where I was going with it. It was something to do with live streaming, and it was.
It's your cue to take a sip of coffee.
It is my cue to take a sip of coffee.
Think about it.
Give it a good ponder.
I'm gonna sit up. My back's hurting a little bit.
Oh, but I got it back. now.
Boom.
Okay, see it works. Rush. It's magic. But especially when you have Twitch is by large and far the dominant streaming platform at the moment. And there's a couple shows on there that are starting to get to like cable network level of production quality.
Wow.
And viewership pull. And one of the big ones right now is this show called Lover Host. I believe it's actually live right now as of time of filming. And it's interesting to see is that, I mean, 5 years ago, if you had said someone would be pulling close to 750,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch, they would have laughed in your face. And now they're doing that on a, I think, bi-weekly basis. And that's incredible. And now we're like one of my passion projects that I've had to kind of put on the back burner now, just because it's a lot for one person to try and do.
Yeah.
Is a late night kind of show on Twitch, because back at the beginning of quarantine, you had all these late night shows that went to YouTube only and were doing their content through that. And now that they're going back more to traditional TV, there's that gap of people who got used to this content being available, and now it's not there. And so you have that captive audience there ready to go. And so wanting to do a internet only, like late night TV show, like Colbert, Kimmel, Fallon style show. And it's just, I've gotten a lot of the back end on that done, but it's the point where if I'm going to do this, and I know once I start doing it, it is going to take off. It's got that good bone that I can tell, but it's just that I don't, as a single individual, this would be a beyond full-time project to work on and do it right. And so I've taken that project and I've had to put it on the back burner until I find some other people who are passionate about this project and willing to put in some time for free before this thing starts making any money.
Right. Maybe, start up another different, maybe not passion project, but business that brings in the income.
Exactly.
And then you start hiring those free interns or low income interns to help you out with that project. But yeah,
we don't pay you in money. We pay you in field experience.
Oh, I hate that. See, as someone who gets that, and I have people like say that to me, or like when I'm reaching out for a client of like, this will be great exposure, like that whole typical thing. It's true. I never want to do that to somebody else.
Yeah.
Of like, I always, if I'm gonna hire or delegate work, I'm gonna pay you for your time.
Yeah.
And I want to like, I don't want to take that but then give it. But I want to like cut it off from my end of like, I'm always going to pay somebody to do work.
Yeah.
If I need them to.
And that's an interesting difference for, at least for me on Twitch. There's a couple people, if you're big enough, I would be willing to do exposure work.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because that turns that turns directly around for me into ad revenue and sub income and donations. Yeah. And so that'll have an almost immediate financial turnaround.
When the people that will actually give you exposure will give you exposure.
Well,
like,
when
that's when you'll take it.
It's worth the exposure for the big names. But no, I mean, I've had so many times, and this is something that drives me nuts. Those companies on Instagram that like whenever you post a photo or whatever, they say, hey, become a brand ambassador, buy our product and become affiliated with us. And it's like, I know what you're trying to do. You're targeting those mid-sized creators who want to be bigger and they want the clout of having a sponsorship.
Right.
And then it's just like, but a sponsorship, you give me things and then you give me money too.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious when you get like DMs like that, but also like want more Instagram followers or something like that. If you look at the account that sent it to you, more like oftentimes they have like 2 posts and 0 followers. And I'm like, how are you 0 followers? Like, I know it's all like automatic and stuff like that, but it's just funny to like think about it. Like, you're telling me I need more followers when you have 0 followers, and like, it's just funny to see like the automatic DMs that like you get and stuff like that for different brand ambassadors and stuff like that. And I've ran across some that like almost look real, like they've got a big following and stuff like that. But then you start looking at the page, every single one's just like curated stock footage, and like you could throw this together in a night. Yeah. And it's super funny.
You go to Adobe stock footage, grab a couple clips from there, throw it together, some inspirational cool music and a shot of a ring, and boom, you've got yourself an internet jewelry brand. Boom. It's that easy.
It'll only cost you $500 for a shout out. Yeah.
Gosh. That's another thing I've noticed too. And now that I'm starting to like, one of the big things for me that I'm starting to work on is I'm at a point where I'm focusing less on growth at the moment and more on engagement with existing followers. Yeah. Is that something I'm trying to work on? So a lot of that for me is meant I'm being very active on Twitter at the moment. And the number of people who come in and are like, hey, follow for follow, or like, I'll shout you out if you shout me out. And like this sort of like scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Do you still get that a lot?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I get that all the time.
That's funny.
I get DMs from accounts that are like, hey, sorry for bothering you, but if you could come check out my stream sometime. And it's like, I can respect the shameless plug. I shameless plug almost every opportunity I get. Twitch.tv/JBreaksGames. But
link in description.
Yeah, link in bio.
Link in, what is it called? Show notes?
Yeah, shout outs.
It's a podcast, not a video.
8:03 PST, Tuesday through Saturday. But we'll probably have to cut that out because I don't think Luke will be a fan of that. But
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll find out. But that whole trying to, like, if you're gonna commit to the grind, if you're going to commit to the shameless plug, full send it. Don't
Be shameless about it.
Yeah, don't half-heartedly do this. And that's something like Gil and Isaac were touching on a lot in last week's episode, is that be willing to commit to the grind. Be willing to put in the time and effort to see what you're passionate about come to fruition. And Gil was talking about that he'll put these people in front of a mic, or he'll give them the tools to paint or start up a print. And it's almost like they want to create obstacles, and they have almost this fear of success.
Yeah.
Because what if this is incredible? What if my streetwear brand is going to take off?
Right.
And you have this fear of, okay, what if this is something that's bigger than I could have ever dreamed it to be?
Yeah. And it's scary. I mean, I've definitely dealt with like fear of success and stuff like that. And like, having the occasional, I think one time I remember is when I did like a little box opening of a coffee grinder. I got from Foursquare. Hey, that it did really well. And like organically is probably one of my best posts.
Yeah.
And I got, it's not a lot, but I got like probably like 13 new followers in a day.
Yeah.
Which, being at the scale I'm at, is a lot.
It feels like
it's not like, I got 5,000 new followers, and like people get that every day. But for me personally, with the ratio of only having about 600 followers on Instagram, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And it's scary to like there's like this weird responsibility of like, I now have like this platform of like people that are like expecting things from me, and it's hard.
It is.
And there's definitely like, that's a real fear of success. And like, I get to, the more I like get into this and start like really pursuing after it, I understand why people like either hit really big burnout and stop creating or something like that, because there's just this huge pressure of like, there is such a big audience following you and people looking at you, and there's this responsibility to create and like almost become like a content machine. And if you're not doing that in the right mindset, and you're not doing it with things you're passionate about it's really, really hard, and it's not sustainable. But it is an interesting concept of how that works.
I think if I'm remembering the stat correctly, my entire career on Twitch, I've had 2,413 people as of last night come across my channel at one point or another and stop by the stream. I have 183 followers at the moment. And there's just, even with that small of a community, like, I feel that there is an obligation, especially for the people who subscribe and are giving me money to do this and to create. I feel such a responsibility to try and deliver the highest quality content. And while we're here, we're directly adjacent to it. I'm going to go ahead and make the leap over to Imposter Syndrome and what that's like.
We shouldn't go there.
I mean, that's something that working here the past month and a half now that I've been dealing with, is that I was gone for a couple weeks to go back home for Thanksgiving, my best friend's wedding. And Luke's been gone on maternity leave for a while. And I've been, good job, Luke. But I mean, I've been dealing with that, is that I've been kind of had free reign on what I've been working on. And that's something I'm dealing with almost a daily basis, is, am I putting in enough time on this? Am I putting in enough work? Luke told me to set up the studio for how I wanted it to be able to shoot the next batch of podcasts. And that's why the table's gone. It's
new setup here.
More conversational approach, being able to engage without the table in the way, and like to try and set stuff up and make this a better shooting space. And I felt, and I know it's not there. I know Luke doesn't have this obscene expectation of me, but it's just in my mind, that little voice of, you need to be doing more. You clearly, you working with all these incredible people who have so much more experience than you. You have to step it up to the next level, and you have to be exceptional, because otherwise you're gone. There's no chance if you're not performing at this level. And it's that voice that I'm constantly having to think of and like tell myself, I do know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about, and I am putting in a lot of time and effort, but it's just that constant nagging feeling of, okay, if I don't perform, I lose my shot.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't rewatch any of my YouTube videos. Once I post them.
Really?
Like, I edit them, post them, and I don't look back, because like the imposter syndrome in me is like, it just like is on fire when I'm rewatching a video, unless it's like I did like an okay job.
Yeah.
But usually it's like I don't want to rewatch that because I just feel like you're not good enough because I'm comparing to, you know, the people that have done it for years and years and years and years. And I see myself and I'm like, this is horrible. And I'm like, in my head, I know, oh, I could have fixed that lighting. Oh, I could have done something better. I should have said this. I should have cut here, something like that.
This bit went on too long.
And it just like, you could have done that better. But like, you have to stay in the mindset of like, doing it over and over and over again is how you get better. And like there's no it sucks, but there's no easy way around it of you are gonna suck. And it's cool that we get to like talk about this right when we're like small creators of like, since we're what's the word, we're committed, that's the word. We're committed to making it happen. It's cool to like see like these small beginnings where like it sounds like we don't have a big following and it can almost sound like we don't know what we're talking about, but this is how it starts. And I think that's a beautiful thing to document because everybody starts there and it's super cool to see like you're struggling. And then once we hit those big marks in kind of this industry, it'll be so cool to look back on here and like just laugh of like, we were so bad then. And then you can actually just fully on just laugh at like how horrible it was because things are off. Things we could have said things better and stuff like that, but we just haven't had the experience and haven't had the repetition it takes to do that.
Who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, some super fans are digging back for anything with their names attached, and they're like, "Oh, I found this podcast episode from like 5 years ago, back in 2020."
And then like it shows them that like, wow, they really sucked when they first started or something like that. But it's just that progress. But no, imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I feel it all the time when I'm like talking with clients and stuff like that, even like trying to get a job and like negotiating price and stuff like that. Like I say the price and I'm like, I don't feel worth this. I don't feel worth this. But then I just, I'm just trying to hold it up.
On the exterior, you're trying to hold it up and you're like, holy cow, are they actually going to agree to this?
But then there's two words in your head where you're like, you say that price because you know you're worth that, but you don't fully believe it yet, and there's just that internal struggle.
That difference between like head knowledge and heart knowledge.
But hey, here we are. Little step at a time.
I mean,
I'm committed to that grind.
Back in early November, I posted my first ever travel vlog. And don't worry, guys, I am working on the others. I just forgot to shoot any talking to the camera scenes while I was in Louisville. So
anytime I step outside my house, I'm like, I'm not filming.
And so I'm having to record those as I'm editing the vlog where I want them. And so that's why this one's taking a little longer to get out. But I edited and posted that one, was really proud of it. And I realized I realized I was watching Casey Neistat videos to compare my vlogs to. And I'm like, okay, I had to take a step back. You're like, okay, this is your first vlog. First time you've ever shot anything like it. First time you've done it. You got some really cool shots in here, but you don't need to be comparing yourself to Casey Neistat.
And the dangerous thing to Casey Neistat, I don't know where or when he started, but if you look at his first video, it's still like all his other videos. And you're like, so I'm sure he like started somewhere else, or he's just a brilliant storyteller. I don't know. But like to compare yourself to him, even if you like, I'll look back at his first videos to see how I compare, like that might be better, but it's still not. Like you don't want to do that because he's like still an amazing creator, even when, at least when his first video was public. I don't know if he has previous videos or something. He's been creating for over a decade. And like you can learn some stuff over 10 years. You know, I've been only doing this like really for 1 year. And it sounds like that's nothing.
And part of the whole casual YouTuber style that's so dangerous to compare yourself to is that it looks so low production. It looks so casual and easy from the other side, and you don't see. I mean, I've been on the other end of those shoots where like we're working with Elliot on some of his TikToks, and the finished product looks so casual and quick shot. But knowing the lighting and the scripting and all the effort that goes in on the back end, and it makes it look so easy, and it makes it you sit there and you're like, well, why can't I just do it like that?
Right. Yeah. And even like going back to Casey Neistat, since I've gone into like the freelance and production side of things, and like I know the behind the scenes of filmmaking. Casey Neistat's videos still look super just everyday, like super easy film shots.
Yeah.
That are like, anybody would do, and he's just vlogging.
Yeah.
But the amount of technical skill that he has, and the way he can frame a shot, and the way he knows how to tell a story is so advanced.
Yeah.
But to an average eye, nobody could ever tell that. And you're like, how come struggling with that comparison? Someone who doesn't know filmmaking could just see that as just a regular video and not see how advanced he really is. And then they just get crushed by that comparison.
Yeah.
But he's had over a decade of experience, and he has the skills. It's just not shown in like a, say, Peter McKinnon style, where it's like super cinematic.
Yeah.
He just tells stories super well.
He dropped a video yesterday called Just a YouTuber, and talking about his degree of imposter syndrome. He was working on a project, I think it was Honda or someone.
Yeah, a big collaboration.
And he was talking about the imposter syndrome of being like on an actual full set and directing that.
Right.
And realizing that this doesn't go away as you get bigger. You just, to a degree, become confident in what you've already done.
Yeah.
And what's led you to that point. But and that's one of the things I kind of love about media, is there's this feeling of you're always like on the edge of a cliff about to jump, and you don't know what's going to catch you.
Yeah, that's one thing I always love about it, is like growing up, I'd had so many different hobbies.
Yeah.
And I'd always get bored because I'd get like decent at it.
Yeah.
And then move on to the next thing. But with filmmaking and media and social media and stuff like this, it's so big that you can like never get good at it, almost in a sense of like, sure, you can be better than other people, and other people can be better than you, but it's so large and there's so much to learn that like even a lifetime you can still learn new things. And since the technology's always going up and stuff like that, there's always more to learn, and I love that about it.
Oh yeah.
I can never be like perfect at it. I can never be, in a sense, like a professional, because it's so big. I can never have full knowledge over everything.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, there's always more to learn, even in the one direction that I take.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
And even then too, looking forward with the new technology, but also looking back, like trying to learn how to shoot film is such
I've been wanting to do that.
I have too. Like, two people from Fourscore recently got married, and they had all their wedding photos shot on film. And I was like,
it's actually not true. They had a lot shot on film.
Not all of them. There was some. Goggin did digital for them. But looking back at those photos, I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah, the film scans that he did have.
Oh yeah.
Also, we have a podcast with Goggin, so go watch it.
Yeah, go watch the episode with Goggin, because he has an amazing story about how he got into videography and all that. And he's
amazing
such
guy.
a talented photographer. Absolutely incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, just the looking at, there really is, you can go as far into the bleeding edge of the future as you want, but you have to always keep in like the back of your mind that, okay, but there's also elements of the past of this field that are still such powerful storytelling tools.
Yeah. It's cool.
It's absolutely incredible. I think this feels kind of like a natural end.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say. Coffee's gone. I've said my things.
We've said everything we wanted to say. I want to thank you guys so much for listening.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in the new year with...
Yeah, Happy New Year. This is the last episode of 2020. Yeah. So, that's a good thing. I hope it's a good thing.
I hope there's not worse to come.
It's exciting because it's like a, new chapter for next year. So it's a fun little episode. Sorry Luke couldn't be here because he's always great to have on it. I did get in front of the camera, so that's a big step for me. Camera. So yeah, thanks so much for listening and watching, guys. Especially if you made it this far.
Oh yeah, especially if you made it this far. Big thanks. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you guys in the next one.
Bye-bye.